Hi everyone. I had a comment today. I read the comments on my channel and, emails and everything like that I get plenty of them. And whenever one piques my interest, I always go and check them out. And I saw a comment this morning from subscriber Yellow Pinko. And he's just said, here's one for you, keep up the good work. And he's left a link to an article in True Publica. And it was fascinating. It really is, because you might remember in one of my live streams, if you caught them this week, I was talking about, I was getting interested in economics, and I need to get an economics professor on or something like that to explain some graphs and to explain, the financial situation of the globe at the moment. And this covers just the financial situation in the UK and how it's affecting our economy. This is mind-blowing, this is. It really is. The City of London, it says, the shocking study no mainstream media outlet dared to publish, by True Publica. Now, this is by Robert Woodward. Let me just read you this is what piqued my interest. Look at the first paragraph. A seriously important and highly credible study was published 5 months ago, last October. We're talking about this study, by the way, by Sperry. Not one, it was completely ignored by all of the mainstream media. It was not one took the opportunity to publish the stunning revelations for fear of what might happen if they did. The report has unpalatable political consequences for the government. In fact, both Labour are implicated by the exposure of this colossal crime. And you can see, obviously, my interest was piqued. Story. I'm not going to read all of this, by the way. This is a big, long article. I'll leave a link below if you want to read it. It's fascinating, it really is. On the 5th of October, the 2018 Sperry report was published. The Sheffield Political Economy Research Institute, which is what Sperry stands for, made some stunning statements. The first paragraph stated this. This report, quote, this report suggests that the total cost of lost growth potential for the UK caused by too much finance between 1995 and 2015 is in the region of £4,500 billion. So lost 4,500 billion, that's £4.5 trillion lost in growth potential. That's how much the economy could have grown by if the money that's been wasted had gone elsewhere. This total figure amounts to roughly 2.5 years of the average gross domestic product across this period. A gross domestic product, all the money that's spent in buying and selling extra, all that sort of stuff in the economy every year. That's your gross domestic product, everything that's manufactured, spent a lot. And it's worth 2.5 years of that. It's incredible. To put that statement in context, we need to deconstruct it a little. We are talking 4.5 trillion over 2 decades. That's £225 billion a year. That could be how much the economy has grown by. I think that's what they mean by lost growth potential. Anyway, each year, the banking and financial services industry in the City of London is sucking out of Britain's economy the equivalent of 160% of total government spending on all healthcare, including the NHS, or 100% on social protection, which includes that of all pension payments per year, and obviously all, job seekers allowance or universal credit, whatever it is, or 700% spent on public order, so firemen and police, or 230 spent and safety, that is, or 230% on spending on education. That's where that money could have gone, or where it could be going. To go further, this sum of money represents the equivalent of £67,500 of wealth losses or stolen to every person in the country. Sure, they would all like 67.5 grand put in their bank account. The Sperry report breaks it down into current losses and losses incurred as a result of the 2008 bank-led financial crisis. So it's broke it down between 2000 something 2015, 1995 and 2015. So in those 20 years, it's broke it down 1995 to 2008, and then 2008 to 2015, those 7 years. The report says this, quote, it provides the first ever numerical estimate for the scale of damage caused by the UK's finance sector growing beyond a useful size. Of the 4.5 trillion loss in economic output, 2.7 trillion is accounted for by the misallocation of resources, where resources, skills and investments are diverted away from more productive non-financial activities into finance. So when they say non-financial activities, I mean if they'd invested in manufacturing or services or that sort of, you get my point. The other 1.8 trillion arises from the 2008 banking crisis. Now remember, that's not from 2009 to now, that's just from 2009 to 2015. We've got another 3.5-4 years since then. So it's more than that. It's more than 1.8 trillion. News reports galore tell us that the financial crisis cost Britain's economy about 500 billion. Yes, I've heard half a trillion figure. That's what they say. Some say more, some less. Not one anywhere, though, has stated in the first decade it cost the economy £1.8 trillion, which is the truer figure if you actually look what, the City of London are doing. We'll go on to explain about them in a minute. And it's not over yet. Interestingly, Britain's national debt is almost exactly 1.8 trillion. Well, isn't that a coincidence? That's about 86% of total GDP, and just servicing that debt, just servicing the debt that we have to pay the Bank of England, etc., and all the others, just servicing the debt costs £48 billion a year. Which is roughly 4% of GDP or 8% of UK government tax income. That's just a waste. The evidence in this report also provides support for the idea that the UK suffers from a form of, quote, a finance curse, a development of financial overdependence involving a crowding out of other sectors, such as manufacturing. What have we seen here? Manufacturing is just non-existent now. And a skewing of social relations, geography and politics. This is exactly what we're seeing. In reality, the banking sector has been allowed by a lack of government restraint to act as a source of wealth generation. In other words, extraction for the people who keep them in power. Now they're talking about the City of London here. Don't know whether to explain this actually in this video or not. Should really do it. The City of London is just like, they call it the square mile. It's the City of London. It's the city within London. And they almost have their own rules and regulations they abide by. They've got their own police force, for instance. And let me carry on reading this because before I go on to explain that, because it says the Tory party are by far the most guilty, albeit that the Tony Blair's government did nothing to abate what should really be called out for what it is: crimes against that nation state. This is theft. This is fraud. Important point, that is. This is not Tory. This is not New Labour. This is both of them going back decades. Okay, whoever was in power, it's the same. Evidence of the weakness of government is no more apparent than in current Prime Minister Theresa May. Now, before I go there, I've explained, haven't I, how in past videos, how the top 100 richest people in this country, their wealth has tripled in the last decade since the financial crash. And this is what has happened in the last 10 years. Remember, it's the bankers that caused the crash by creating that whole bubble, that whole subprime mortgages bubble. They're creating money out of nothing. So when all of a sudden one goes down, it's a whole deck of cards and they all fall down. And rather than actually hold them accountable for doing those crimes, and they were crimes, and sending people to prison so that in future other people who maybe have got that idea will go, now I don't really want to go to prison. They let them all get away with it, didn't ask them to pay anything back, just gave them the money, and then through series of through austerity measures in this country, basically made the poorest people pay for it. Through cuts to NHS, through cuts to the police force. You get my point. I don't need to keep going over old ground. Meanwhile, this is happening. The wealth is being extracted to the country and going straight up to these people. I've talked about this is the largest transfer of wealth to the top 1% in the history of the world. In the history of humanity, it's never happened before at this size, so quick. And this has all happened under neoliberal policies, under David Cameron, under Obama. These are neoliberals who are doing this. you know? I suppose you could call Cameron a neoconservative. It's probably a bit of both. But you see what I mean? The City of London are extracting this through just all sorts of schemes. And when you actually look at what goes on and where this money goes, then you start really going down a rabbit hole. I'll come to that in a minute. But it goes on to say, evidence of the weaknesses of government is no more apparent than in the current Prime Minister Theresa May. The government's decision to pull its financial services bill, this happened a few days ago, is at best revealing about who calls the shots in Parliament. So get this. There is no doubting who is calling the shots. The people who largely fund the Tories in the first place, the City of London. So they're talking about this bill that was pulled. Fresh Brexit chaos as government shelves financial services bill in face of a looming defeat. This is the financial services bill that must go through as part of Brexit by March the 29th. They've delayed it again. A Guardian article published just yesterday, sorry, I'll say that again. GCHQ's mouthpiece published an article just yesterday that told us all we need to know about pulling of its financial services bill in its first paragraph. Probably doesn't tell you all you need to know. This is GCHQ's mouthpiece. I'll do some translation at the end of it. Rather than accept a small step towards for tax fairness, whoever wrote this article said, a move backed by a cross-party coalition, ministers dropped one of the 6 pieces of key legislation required to pass by the end of March as part of a no-deal Brexit safety net. So this must pass by the end of March, but they've pulled it. Clock's ticking, you know? It is a sign that Theresa May's weakness in office, that the bill could not pass in the form of the government wanted, and a clear demonstration that big finance continued to call the tune in the upper reaches of the Conservative Party. Exactly. You know, I've said all along, if you look at my Brexit stance, I've said all along, they're not going to give you Brexit. Right? We're not going to have a Brexit, and we're definitely not going to crash out, because that is a Brexit and they don't want to give you it. It's the Conservative Union Party. I've gone over this. But this is another point. This is another thing that goes to prove that and looks, okay, that's more evidence. Because if they were going to give you Brexit, then they would obviously be passing legislation like this. But they're not. They don't want to talk about, they don't want these votes even to come to the table. They would much rather just delay it and just extend Article 50. Like I've said they're going to do all along, that many of you watching have said, they can't do that. And I've said, yes, they can and they will. Here, we have evidence, this article continues, that even Brexit is being manipulated for the sake of City of London. Of course it is. These are the people, the City of London, these are the people. They're extracting all this wealth. And the same people are the major donors of the Conservative Party. It's legalised bribery. It's pretty much the same thing that goes on in America, although in America it's far more in your face and on the surface. They don't try and hide it over there. At least here there's some sort of veil in this dodgy square mile of London that seems to operate in rules that are just all to themselves. They've got their own police force. And yes, over the last 40 years or so, this article says, Britain's economy and its failing tax system have been completely reconfigured to serve the interests of the rich who have offshored their wealth to ring-fence it away from contributing to the country of its extraction. No one, though, it seems, is prepared to fully challenge the sheer power of City of London. The non-publication of the Sperry report by the mainstream media that lays bare the realities of this monumental crime is surely evidence of that. I would expect nothing else from the Mockingbird media than to have totally ignored this report, and they have. And this is shows more of their culpability in it. Now, I'm not saying they're doing this on purpose, but all of their writers and the journalists and the editors of these publications, they all come from educated from the same places, from the same different sort of backgrounds. They all think the same way. They're employed because they think like that, not because they're good at what they do. It's just what they do. Hey, it pushes what whoever the people pulling the strings, it pushes whatever they want to be pushed. It goes on, this article does. That report, by the way, it's so huge. It's so in depth. I haven't read any of it. I've just read this update from TruePublica. But I'm glad this sort of thing still goes on. You know, we haven't totally lost we haven't totally lost control of it yet. At least we still have people who are, you know, publishing facts. This article goes on to talk about the City of London, and it goes on to talk about how they are using offshore territories of the UK to sort of hide all this money that's being extracted. There's a great documentary on YouTube called, I think it's called The Spider's Web, and it covers this, and it covers how the City of London have extracted the wealth, and it covers how some of these overseas territories of the UK's, I can't remember what it was now. I can't remember if it was a Cayman Islands or something. One of these overseas territories. It's a tiny little island with like a few thousand people on it, but its banking system is like the 5th biggest banking system in the world. You know, this is where all the money is going. Let's face it. It's certainly not going in schools. It's certainly not going in education, and it's certainly not going to police force. It's all getting extracted from the economy, from financial services. And I've specifically said one of the reasons why the Tories don't want a Brexit is because of these financial services. It will throw a whole spanner in the works. I've said it over and over. I'm going to start getting economists on over the next couple of weeks, and I'm going to try anyway to try and get to the bottom of this and trying to, you know, shed some more light on it. But it certainly does seem that if we can really scratch beneath the surface here and do some investigating, then, you know, maybe we can find out why we can't have all the nice things that the government are telling us that we can't have. It's because their donors, it seems, are stealing it all from us. I'm shocked. Are you? For more truly honest, independent media like the video you just saw, please subscribe and click the bell below as well so you get a notification of when I drop further videos. If you also like and share and comment on the video as well, that really helps with the algorithm and boosts exposure. And if you can support me, please do so. You can do with any of the avenues on the screen at the moment and below this video. You can support me for as little as $1 a month on Patreon, and every dollar helps. We need your support at the moment. We do not have an operating fourth estate. I'm sure you're aware, a functioning media holding power accountable is vital for democracy. At the moment, we haven't got it. So people like me are having to fill their shoes and do the job for them with your support. Thanks very much for your support. Till next time. Peace and take care.